For sinister internet rabbit holes revealed, discover the cursed and haunting secrets hiding within, in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Virginia, where the white picket fences shimmered under the stars. Sarah found herself staring at her laptop, the glow illuminating the worry etched on her face. Her mind raced with fears from her recent divorce, the weight of single parenthood settling like a stone in her chest. It was midnight, and as her two teenage daughters, Emily and Sophie, slept peacefully, Sarah desperately scrolled through the ominous forums she stumbled upon. Urban legends of the suburbs screamed at her from the screen, filled with haunting tales of ordinary families hiding sinister secrets. For disquieting rabbit holes, it promised, and as she read, it felt as if icy hands were gripping her heart. The stories were unsettling: missing children, families torn apart by the darkness lurking behind perfect facades, each eerily connected by the stretch of suburban streets. A chill crept down her spine. Each post whispered of danger, of horrors simmering beneath the surface of cookie-cutter homes. She gulped, the reality of her secure neighborhood shattering around her. After all, the suburbs were supposed to be safe, weren't they? Then came the innocuous mention of Mr. Collins, their new neighbor. Sarah had met him briefly. He was charming, with a warm smile that could disarm anyone. But her instincts twisted in knots at the very thought of him. Emily and Sophie adored him, raving about his kindness, how he brought over homemade cookies and offered them pizza. "Mom, he's just being nice," they would say, eyes rolling at her concern. But in the pit of her stomach, fear curled tighter, refusing to extinguish. Was it paranoia or instinct? Before Sarah could dismiss it, a message pinged from her phone. It was a frantic text from Emily. "Mr. Collins invited us over for pizza." The word sent daggers of dread into her heart. Hadn't she read about the neighbor who seemed friendly and then? "Mom, please." Sophie groaned amidst their teenage rebellion. "You're being overprotective." The more she tried to connect the dots, the more isolated she felt. Then, one night, her phone buzzed again. This time it was the news. A family had vanished just 2 streets over. Their house was now just walls painted with shadows of memories. Sarah's world tilted, the threads of reality were unraveling. With her nerves higher than ever, she decided to contact local authorities, laying bare her panic and asking for vigilance. But they reassured her in pointed tones that everything was under control, dismissing her as just another concerned mother. Those words echoed in her mind: overprotective mother. The label clung to her like a suffocating fog. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the clock ticked past midnight, Sarah's laptop pinged unexpectedly. A new message flashed from Mr. Collins. "Discover even darker truths. Are you brave enough to peel back the layers?" Sarah's breath seized in her throat, her mind racing. What truth lay hidden? Palpable dread clawed at her as she faced the possibility that the nightmares she thought were mere stories were now in her backyard, festering like a wound. She thought of her daughters, of their laughter, of how close they were to something malevolent. Time was running low. Would she manage to pull her girls back from the edge of darkness before it was too late, or had they already crossed into a fate that was chillingly intertwined with the shadowy depths of their seemingly perfect neighborhood? Sarah's heart raced as she stared at the screen, the words "darker truths" echoing through her mind. What did Mr. Collins want her to discover? She hovered over the message, her fingers trembling. Should she respond? A sudden noise from the kitchen erupted behind her, jerking her attention away from the laptop. The faint clatter of dishes sent a fresh wave of adrenaline coursing through her veins. With a shaky breath, she stood up, creeping toward the source of the sound. Perhaps the girls were awake, looking for late-night snacks. But something felt off. Eerie silence replaced the distant hum of the dishwasher. Emily? Sophie? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Nothing but stillness met her ears. With the instinct of a predator, she tiptoed into the kitchen, scanning for any signs of activity. The light flickered ominously, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls and counter. As she reached the doorway, she could see the empty kitchen table, a single plate left from dinner, remnants of food growing cold. Her mother's intuition prickled like 1,000 needles at her skin. She felt like prey, hunted, and the hunter was close. Then, a quick movement caught her eye. It was in the corner of the living room, an outline shifting in the dark. Was someone in her house? Panic surged inside her like fire as her mind raced back to the message on her laptop. Sarah. A voice suddenly broke through the darkness. Mr. Collins, standing on her porch, the moonlight casting a ghastly shadow across his face. He appeared more menacing than she remembered, an unsettling smile stretched unnaturally across his lips. "What are you doing here?" she yelled, disbelief mingling with fear. "I thought it would be fun for us to get to know each other a little better," he said smoothly, his voice like honey yet laced with the bitterness of impending danger. "I brought over a few things from your daughters and, of course, the pizza." The words hung in the air, the innocent tone contrasting sharply with the dreadful undertone enveloping her. "My daughters?" He nodded, gesturing toward the closed door behind him. "In my home. They'll be perfectly safe. I just wanted to share some information about the neighborhood." Fear shot through Sarah like an arrow. She wasn't hiding from Mr. Collins, she was hiding for the very lives of her girls. "Get away from my house." As she spun back to slam the door shut, a chill swept through her. The front door creaked open with a groan. He didn't move, didn't flinch. Just stood there, unrelenting, a hunter closing in on his prey. "What do you want, Mr. Collins?" she shouted, pressing her back against the door as it felt heavier than ever. "Just to show you that there's a darker side to this neighborhood, Sarah. Would you like to see?" In that moment, uncertainty spiraled in her mind. The girls, they could be in danger. Was Mr. Collins just a friendly neighbor, or something far more sinister? Was there next door really a haunted history, a curse that loomed over every house? The texts, the missing families, everything began weaving together into a tapestry of horror that threatened to unravel her completely. And there she was, trapped in a claustrophobic expanse between malevolence and helplessness. "Why should I trust you?" she spat, rising anger mingling with fear. He stepped forward. "Because I know more than you think, Sarah. Maybe I can help you, or maybe I can show you how deep the rabbit hole goes." Her heart thudded wildly, and an overwhelming realization crashed down on her. She was running out of time. She had to act fast to rescue her girls from whatever dark fate awaited them, but did she dare open that door? The answer would not only affect her own fate but that of her daughters as well. "Mom!" A frantic voice erupted from behind her, and her breath caught as fear seized her, a sound far too familiar, yet deep down she sensed it was different this time. "Help us!" The cry resonated, slicing through the shrouded air like a dagger. Would she turn to face the unfolding horror? Or would she search desperately to uncover the truth? Behind the seemingly innocent smiles, risking everything for the lives of her daughters? Time was slipping away, and darkness was closing in fast. The urgency in Sarah's heart felt like a live wire, she could barely breathe. "Mom!" The voice was relentless, echoing like a siren in her mind. It was familiar, yet something in its tone twisted her stomach. "Emily! Sophie!" she screamed, realization dawning like a slow, creeping dread. Those voices, they were right behind her. She turned on her heel, pulse racing, to find the living room engulfed in shadows. The windows were dark, those ominous shapes flickering in the corners didn't feel like home anymore, they felt like a trap. "Mom!" It was closer now, unmistakably a cry laced with fear. The shadows seemed to quiver and swell, and Mr. Collins was still there on the porch, a dark figure eclipsing the sparse glow from the street lamp. "You should really listen to them, Sarah. They might need some encouragement." His voice dripped with malice, making her skin crawl. "Stay away." She rushed back to the door, locking it with fumbling fingers, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. "Isn't that the point?" He chuckled, stepping onto the porch steps. "They always need something from you. Aren't you tired of being without control?" "No." It was a shout, born from primal fear. The idea that something could be happening to her girls sent her reeling. She grabbed her phone, but the screen blinked, unresponsive. No bars, surrounded by darkness, she was trapped like her daughters. "Collins, I swear what? That you'll protect them?" He laughed, a low, twisted sound that wrapped around her like a noose. "From what? From the same influences that left them lost? You have no idea, Sarah. I know things. Like that rabbit hole you've been browsing, it holds all the answers." She searched for words, but they slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. "Let them go. They haven't done anything. They're curious, like you. Kids want to peek behind the curtain." His eyes gleamed, eyes piercing through the gloom like two predatory stars. Before she could utter a response, the house shuddered, the walls whispering a sinister undertone. The kitchen door rattled ominously, as if something were trying to claw its way in. "Mom!" The call was louder, more frantic, now rising from behind the mesh of shadows, from where she felt the strongest tug of fear. "Stop this!" A new surge of adrenaline pushed her forward, ready to fight against whatever darkness awaited. Mr. Collins stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Just remember, curiosity can lead to dangerous places. Are you prepared to dive deeper? Let my daughters go, or I swear." A high-pitched giggle sounded from the living room. It twisted into something horrifying, a laugh that felt centuries old, mocking her, chilling her to the bone. "Sarah!" This time it was different. The panic had twisted into something dark, unsettling. "Help us." They weren't just calling anymore. They were pleading. Collins stepped back, seemingly amused. "Time to choose, Sarah. The door creaks toward the truth, or perhaps you can go back to the comfort of ignorance. I promise, nothing will be the same afterward." In that moment, she realized it wasn't only her daughters she was fighting for. It was also her sanity, her peace of mind. "Mom!" The sound was raw, desperate, an emotional dagger piercing her resolve. With horrified urgency, Sarah yanked the front door open, the chilly air biting her face. "Lead the way," Collins taunted, stepping closer as shadows began to breathe around them. She had to make the choice: face him and the truth, or retreat back into familiar darkness. "Mom!" That chorus rang through her again, echoing her fear, racing into the unknown. In that split second, as the threshold opened before her like a yawning grave, a choice emerged: a truth ready to surface, or a deception about to swallow her whole. But what awaited them on the other side? As doubt boiled within her, her mind raced, tangled in terror. Did she have the courage to dive into the truth, or would she crash into her deepest fears? The cold wind surged through the doorway as Sarah stepped outside, the weight of Mr. Collins's presence looming behind her like a specter. Shadows danced along the porch rail, warping and stretching, threatening to snatch her back into the darkened house. Emily. Sophie. The names felt like a mantra, a desperate prayer carried off in the wind. As she scanned the empty yard, the world felt too quiet, too still, a heavy silence that pressed against her ears, amplifying her heartbeat. Suddenly, the giggles erupted again, manic and layered with pain. "Mom!" It twisted down her spine. It had shifted, morphed into something that sent her racing again toward the source. "Can you hear them, Sarah?" Collins's voice slithered through the air, wrapping around her mind. "Just a few more steps. You'll know when you see them." "Shut up." She screamed back, but her resolve wavered. Each footfall felt like she was marching toward an abyss, and the growing darkness surrounded her, clutching at her legs. With every passing heartbeat, the call from inside the house grew more frantic. It clawed at her insides, raising the bile in her throat. "They're not lost, are they?" Colin said, amusement dancing in his tone. "Maybe it's you who needs to face the truth. Their darkness is only a reflection of yours." "No. Just a trick, a manipulation." She bit her lip, wrestling with the doubt swirling in her chest. Rounding the corner of the house, she found herself staring into the depths of the backyard. It was overgrown and wild, an ominous mass of everything that had once been tidy. Mulched leaves rustled like whispers, growing louder with every breath. "Mom." She turned, panic-stricken, realizing Collins had slipped behind her. His breath was near sour like rot. "Careful," he whispered. "You don't want to know what's hidden in the branches." "But they do. Let them go." She shouted, her anger flaring like a candle flame in a storm. "You're just playing with me." His laughter rang out, chilling her blood. "What if I'm preparing you for what's to come? The doors are always open but few dare to tread through them. Not your daughter's a sense of adventure lingers, but don't you wonder what awaits in those dark corners?" "Mom." That sound. It rolled through the air like thunder. No longer a cry but a scream laced with despair. Moving forward, Sarah felt a compulsion pulling her along, weaving through the trees like a spectral guide. As she pressed on, every branch overhead snagged at her hair like fingers reaching out to hold her back. "Do you feel that tension?" Collins's voice pressed against her thoughts. "It's the unraveling. The truth paves the way to darkness, but the darkness, it can be irresistible." "Shut up." She growled, pushing herself harder, driven by a primal need to find her daughters. Then she saw it. A flicker of light pulsing through the trees, a beacon in the pitch black. "Emily." "Sophie." She called, her voice taut with desperation. "Mom. Please help." The relief was short-lived. As she reached the clearing, a ghastly sight unfurled. Figures cloaked in shadows huddled around a flickering image, a chilling tapestry of faces, far too familiar, twisted and writhing in agony. Her breath hitched in her throat. This was hell materialized, and there stood her girls at the edge, peering into the nightmarish glow. "Sarah, don't." Collins' voice faded beneath the chaotic noise as she stepped closer. Each face, their expressions filled with numb despair, surged her forward, even as dread licked at her heels. The very essence of her soul seemed to fracture as she crossed the threshold into the heart of darkness. What had she stumbled upon? This nightmare was just beginning, clawing its way to the surface, and could there be a way back? "Sarah." The voices began to merge, and she felt the shadows wrap around her ankle like a vice. With her heart hammering, she swallowed her fear and pressed deeper into the chaos. Would she sink into this madness, or could she tear her daughters from the jaws of darkness? As she plunged into the luminous horror, she couldn't shake the feeling that the truth lay much more sinister than she had ever imagined, and it was hungry. The moment Sarah stepped deeper into the light, an icy grip encased her heart. The colors around her intensified, the shadows morphing and warping like molten reflections on a dark pool. The haunting laughter of her daughters rang sharper, echoing with a dissonance that rattled her bones. "Mom, come closer." They beckoned, their voices almost melodic but twisted with desperation. The flickering faces surrounding them twisted and twisted, their eyes hollow yet weighty with sorrow. "Stay back." She cried out, her voice strained against the suffocating aura of despair. But as she moved, the shadows coiled tighter around her ankles, tugging her like an anchor, drawn toward the darkness. She fought against it, her knees trembling from the effort. Too many faces loomed before her, those she recognized but wished to forget. Each reflected pain and regret, memories woven into a tapestry that threatened to ensnare her. "You don't belong here," Sarah," a voice whispered from the shadows, the painful truth slicing through her resolve. "You're one of us now, shut up." She screamed. "I'm not like you." Her defiance echoed, but the shadows merely laughed, a cacophony of despair that sent ice into her veins. "Help us." Emily's voice rang clearer now, sharper than anything else. "We need to go home." "What have you done?" Sarah panted, torn between the thrumming desperation of her heart and the pulling darkness around her. As if in response to her anguish, the other faces began to morph, twisting into grotesque shapes that resembled those in her life: the neighbor, the teacher, even distant relatives long gone. Each one stared longingly, their mouths moving in silent screams, drawing Sarah further into the pit of horror. Collins emerged from the indistinct shadows, his expression twisted with glee. "It's an invitation, Sarah," he exclaimed. "To join them. To understand. To be free." "No." The word was raw on her tongue, and she fought to remember what it meant. Freedom? It felt like a cruel joke, lost in the folds of this nightmare. She glanced back at her daughters, their eyes wide and pleading. Panic surged through her. "Hold on. I'm coming." With every ounce of strength, she broke through the chilling grasp of shadows, lunging forward. The laughter and screams coiled around her, determined to drag her down. "Mom, please!" Sophie cried, and a split second of clarity surged through her, a flicker of hope against the overwhelming dread. Reaching out, Sarah grasped for them, her fingers brushing against Emily's outstretched hand. But just as she felt the warmth of her daughter's skin, cold fingers shot around her wrist, tugging her backward into a swirling vortex of darkness. "Let go!" She screamed as the world around her morphed again, swirling into chaos. The shadows slammed tight, and suddenly the scenery shifted. She was no longer in the clearing, but back at the doorstep of the house, the door ominously ajar. "Sarah, you've been chosen." Collins whispered from the shadows, still lurking, insistent. "This is just the beginning. Choose or be chosen. The darkness demands a price." With her heart racing, she took a shuddering step backward, the overwhelming reality of her choices bearing down upon her. Would she succumb to the darkness, or could her love for her daughters pull her from the brink? As the door creaked open wider, a new, oppressive whisper crawled into her ear, a promise of what lay within. What choices would she have to make next? And how much would she lose in the process? The door creaked further open, revealing swirling shadows that beckoned like a dark mouth ready to swallow her whole. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out Collins' laughter, which seemed to rise and fall with the eerie gusts from inside the house. Don't go in there." Her mind screamed, even as her feet edged forward. The urge to protect her daughters surged through her, but she could feel the cold breath of the unknown brushing against her neck, its weight like iron chains wrapped around her soul. "Help us." Emily's voice echoed again, a haunting plea that sent shivers down her spine. The warmth of her touch lingered in Sarah's memory, a vivid reminder of what she stood to lose. She took a hesitant step back, gripping the doorframe with desperate fingers, racked with indecision, but the shadows lurked closer, their whispers curling around her legs, tugging and urging, a blurring tide that threatened to drown her resolve. "You'll never find your way back," came a croaky voice that sounded all too familiar. "You'll never escape your fate." "No." Sarah gasped, her breath hitching. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against the darkness that sought to envelop her. Thoughts surged, a memory of her daughter's laughter on summer afternoons, their little hands in hers, their innocence untouched. She couldn't let it end like this. Not like this. "Mom!" Sophie shouted again, and Sarah's resolve pulsed like a fresh bruise. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she lunged forward, slipping into the mouth of the house, shadows clawing at her as though battling her every movement. The instant she crossed the threshold, she felt the visceral pull of anger and despair wash over her, raw and palpable. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, the aroma of forgotten entities. Figures danced just beyond her sight, flitting between walls, flashes of horror that teased the corner of her eye. Shapes twisted into her nightmares, people she lost, strangers she feared. All of them beckoned, moaning with a mix of need and bitterness. "Join us, Sarah," they chorused, their voices intertwining into a maddening song. "We need you here. We have been waiting." "No," she yelled, clenching her fists as if to mask the tremor of terror gnawing at her courage. Her daughters' faces emerged in her thoughts, clear and bright, holding her unwavering against the nightmare forming around her. "I want to lose myself." As if the declaration ignited a fire, the shadows recoiled, shrieking in protest. A suffocating tension gripped the air, vibrating with unearthly energy. The walls seemed to pulsing like a heartbeat, the house itself alive, rejecting her defiance. Colin's silhouette appeared, an amalgam of shadow and intention. "You think you can resist the call? Look around." His voice dripped with a mocking tone, commanding her gaze to the phantoms swirling like thick smoke. "They are part of you now. You can't fight what you are." Tears sprang to her eyes as Sarah turned to the swirling mist of faces. "I'm not like you," she shrieked, desperation crackling through her voice, but doubt began to seep in. What if he was right? What if she was already too far gone? As she wobbled on the edge of uncertainty, the shadows raged against her will, lashing out like snakes. With a sudden shock, Sarah felt a sharp tug at her heart, a hollow pull that threatened to uproot her very essence. Suddenly, a figure erupted from the depths, launching toward her, a flicker of light splintering through the darkness. "Mom!" came a voice, stark against the chaos. It was Emily. "Stay back!" she shrieked reflexively, but the plea escaped too late. Emily rushed forward, her eyes wide with fear and determination. "Together!" she cried, reaching for Sarah's trembling hand. In that instant, a pulse of energy connected them, bright and blinding, piercing through the oppressive darkness like a knife. The shadows writhed in agitation, screeching in anger, but before Sarah could grasp the hope building within her, the ground trembled beneath them. Would the connection be strong enough to pull them all out? "Sarah!" Collins shouted from the edge, fury etched in every shadowy contour of his form. "You can't escape." As Sarah clung to Emily's outstretched hand, uncertainty loomed heavy. Would they pull free from the abyss or be consumed by it? The choice felt violently close. Shadows lunged, claws outstretched, and the world around them trembled, every second counting. What awaited them beyond this moment? Would they find deliverance or succumb to the encroaching dark? The house echoed with silent screams as they prepared to either confront the unknown or vanish forever. The floor beneath them buckled, an angry roar shaking the wooden beams. It felt like the house itself was alive, devouring its past and all who wandered into its depths. "Hold on, Mom." Emily's voice shattered the chaos as fear flickered through her eyes, wrestling with the desperate hope they held onto. The shadows clawed at Sarah's ankles, biting and gnawing, urging her to relinquish her grip and join them in darkness. Sarah's heart raced like a caged animal, thumping wildly in her chest. She couldn't let go, not now. She had come too far. The warmth of Emily's hand anchored her, a lifeline tethered against the abyss. A shrill wail pierced through the cacophony, echoing from the corners of the house. It was Sophie's voice, haunting and frail. "Mom! Help me! Stay with me, sweetheart!" Sarah shouted back, straining to focus. Emily's grip tightened, but the shadows were relentless, pushing against them like a tide rising higher. The wall seemed to stretch and bend, contorting around their desperate union. They staggered, almost losing balance when an icy breath brushed against their necks. The walls pulsated with disdain. Time was ticking like a metronome, echoing in her mind, demanding action. Just then, a fierce wind whirled around them, snatching at their clothes, the house alive with chaos. "Together!" Emily urged, desperation clinging to her words. In that moment, their bond surged like a wildfire, light igniting against the powerful darkness. Closer. They needed to be closer. The tendrils of shadows lunged forward, wrapping around Sarah's waist, restraining her breath. "You're not strong enough." Collins laughed, his voice sliding from the shadows like a venomous snake. "You'll never win against what lives within." "I refuse." Sarah screamed, drawing on every ounce of strength she had left. The suffocating darkness swallowed her voice temporarily, but the connection with Emily glimmered like a fragile candle. Suddenly, the light between them flared, illuminating monstrous shapes swirling in the gloom. Every specter that had once danced at the fringe of her imagination came into focus: a widow, a lost child, anguished souls moaning, begging for liberation. With a feral twist of grief, Sarah confronted the nightmare. "I will not let you take another," she shouted, each word vibrating through the malevolent energy. "You can't have us." The shadows writhed at her declaration, howling in rage. But something shifted. The faces of the lost began to falter, their distorted humanity revealing flickers of despair. Sarah and Emily exchanged a glance, understanding dawning amidst the chaos. "Emily, we need to pull them back," Sarah shouted again, determination hardening her resolve. "They're trapped like us. We need to save them." Together, they began to channel the warmth of their bond into a concentrated pulse, focusing on every innocent face, pulling on every memory of laughter and light. "Join us," Sarah urged everyone in that swirling mass. "You don't have to stay hidden forever." As the light expanded, it swept through the house, stirring hope amidst despair. But Collins's laughter curdled the air, his voice serrated with menace. "You think this will save you? You'll only invite more darkness." The ground shuddered violently, and for a moment, it felt like the house was teetering on the brink of collapse. Shadows whipped around them, fragments of sorrow igniting into fury as they fought against the light. With a sudden pop, the connection between Sarah and Emily cracked. "Mom!" Emily cried, the light flickering, battling the encroaching darkness. Desperation flooded Sarah's heart. She had one choice left: a final leap of faith. Taking a deep breath, she shouted, "Hear us. We are light." But just as she felt a shift, a whirling emptiness tore at their foundation. As the darkness shrieked, a brilliant flash threatened to engulf them all. The house shook, vibrating with the force of their plea, and amid the violence, Sarah's awareness wavered as shadows danced like a macabre ballet. Where would they land? They could break free or be buried in the dark. Forever. As the pulse of energy surged toward its climax, Sarah's vision blurred, and she whispered a silent prayer. In that moment, the world dissolved around them, leaving nothing but uncertainty, and then darkness. Would they awaken, or would they slip into oblivion? What awaited them when the light returned? Time slipped away in an endless void, each second a heartbeat echoing against the heavy silence. Sarah felt weightless, suspended between threads of reality and nightmare. Her mind fought against the inky blackness, searching for clarity, clinging to the last memories of warmth and light, and then, like a candle flickering back to life, the darkness began to fracture. But the brightness that emerged wasn't the comforting glow she longed for. It was jagged and raw, revealing the chaos of her surroundings in harsh strokes. The house loomed before her, its familiar facade now twisted and grotesque. Broken beams jutted out at odd angles, and the air crackled with tension. "Emily!" she shouted, panic tightening her throat as she frantically searched for her daughter. "Mom?" a shaky voice responded. Relief and fear tangled in Sarah's chest as she turned toward the sound. Emily stood several feet away, her eyes wide with confusion. "What happened? Where are we?" "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart racing. "But we have to find Sophie." The walls of the house seemed to lean closer, almost eager to hear their fear. Shadows crawled like insects at the edges of her vision, whispering sinister secrets that made the hairs on her neck stand on end. "Stay close," she urged, inching toward Emily, but the moment they stepped deeper into the house, the air shifted. A low, guttural growl reverberated through the timbers. It felt alive, pulsing, vibrating with malice. Each creak of the floor threatened to swallow them whole. Suddenly, a door slammed somewhere far off, an echo that reverberated through the house like an ominous drumbeat. That came from the cellar. Emily exclaimed, eyes gleaming with fear and determination. With a nod, Sarah grabbed her daughter's hand, both of them anchored by fear but driven by love. They moved together, carefully descending the narrow steps to the cellar, darkness engulfing them. The air grew thick with the scent of mold and decay, wrapping around them like a shroud. Flickering lights overhead revealed remnants of a past filled with old furniture, dust-laden boxes, and broken memories. The atmosphere was thickening, layers of despair weighing heavily upon them. "Do you hear that?" Emily whispered, straining to listen. A soft chant lingered, murmurs of the forgotten, a chorus that chilled Sarah to her core. "Yes," Sarah breathed, every instinct alive. "Let us move." They ventured farther into the cramped space, following the sound. It reverberated against the damp wooden walls, growing louder with each step. Shadows lurked, stretching and clawing in the dim light, obscuring the source of the eerie chanting. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Sarah spotted something flicker, an old mirror propped against the wall. It moved, stirring like a living entity, its surface swirling with emotions not their own. "What is it?" Emily asked, fear flickering in her voice. "I don't know." Sarah reached out cautiously, her fingertips brushing against the cold surface. It rippled, and suddenly, the chanting intensified, sounding almost like a plea. "Help us know." It was not a plea, it was a command. The shadows swirled around the mirror, rising like a tide. She yanked back, panic choking her breath as the mirror shifted again, revealing twisted faces trapped within its depths, screaming, reaching out. "We have to go!" Emily shrieked, her grip tightening around Sarah's arm, pulling her back toward the stairs. But the shadows lunged, tendrils of darkness wrapping around Sarah's legs, pulling her toward the mirror's depths. "Emily, run!" Sarah shouted, terror flooding her veins. In an instant, the mirror's hold intensified. Memory after memory flashed in her mind, collapsing walls, sorrowful whispers, and a desperate urgency tugged at her soul. Time was running out. With a raw scream, Sarah summoned every ounce of willpower. "Fight it!" she yelled, struggling against the shadows. But just when hope flickered like a dying flame, darkness surged, engulfing her vision once again as a fierce cold swallowed her whole. The weight of despair threatened to pull her under, and then, as suddenly as it began, silence fell steep and heavy. The mirror still glinted ominously in the distance, echoing the chant, and from somewhere far away a voice resonated softly. "Help us!" Would they break free, or were they destined to join the chaos? What would happen when the last shroud of light faded once again? Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. The sudden stillness was overwhelming, pressing down on her like a lead weight. Her eyes darted back to the mirror, its surface now reflecting nothing but a dark void. The chant continued, a soft echo murmuring in a language both foreign and unervingly familiar. "Mom?" Emily's voice trembled, pulling Sarah's focus back to her daughter. The girl's wide eyes glistened with unshed tears, and her small body quaked beside her. "Stay close," Sarah whispered, forcing her legs to move, fighting against the invisible chains that had momentarily seized her. But where to? The cellar felt like a labyrinth, shadows lurching every time she dared look away. Suddenly, a loud crash rumbled from the far side of the room, sending them both into a panic. We should find a way out." Emily stuttered, her voice barely above a whisper, the fear crawling across her skin like 1,000 spiders. But the darkness seemed to pulse around them. "No, we have to find Sophie," Sarah insisted, her voice sharper, clawing its way through the dread blanketing them. She hesitated, torn between the frantic need to flee and the maternal instinct that urged her to press on for her daughter. Emily nodded sharply, the determination flickering in her eyes dimmed by fear. They turned back toward the haunting mirror, its presence dragging at the corners of Sarah's mind, beckoning her with a promise of answers that felt just out of reach. Eager to dismiss it, Sarah led them deeper into the cellar, stepping over scattered debris and fallen crates. As they searched the crumbling shelves, every creak of the floorboards whispered secrets, and her heart raced in response. "Mom, do you see that?" Emily pointed, her voice strained. Sarah followed her finger to a shadowy corner, where the flickering light revealed an old doorway partially concealed by cobwebs. The air thickened, heavy with anticipation and dread. "Should we?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. With a resolute nod, Sarah approached the door. Each slow step felt like a step deeper into a pit of despair, but it was also the only way that felt right. The chanting grew louder, more insistent, reverberating beneath her skin. "On 3, she breathed. Emily nodded, knuckles pale as she clutched her mother's hand. 1, 2, 3. With a swift motion, Sarah flung the door open. The creaking wood protested loudly, and they stumbled into the narrow hallway beyond, darkness swallowing them whole. But the corridor stretched endlessly, twisting into further obscurity. The chanting morphed into discordant whispers, screams buried beneath layers of sorrow. Each step felt heavier, weighted down by the flickers of their own memories played back at them in surreal flashes. "Mom! I don't like this." Emily's eyes darted around, pacing faster, her earlier bravado lost to panic. Just a bit further. The door at the end of the hall seemed to pulsate with light, beckoning them closer. But as they approached, a cold gust of wind swept past, extinguishing every flicker of warmth in the air. Shadows danced wildly, scrambling backward as if afraid of something lurking within. "Wait," Sarah hesitated, an unease gripping her heart. It was then she noticed the words etched at the top of the doorframe, "Only the Honorable may pass." "Mom?" Emily's voice shook. "What does it mean?" "I don't know." As she reached out to touch the doorknob, the shadows writhed and twisted violently around them, almost breathing, as if to warn against what lay ahead. "Mom! We can't." But the moment her hand made contact with the cold metal, the door swung open. A flood of chilling air enveloped them, revealing a world beyond that seemed to shimmer with every secret they had ever known. "Stand back!" Emily cried, trying to pull her mother away. But Sarah felt a pull, an irresistible urge, and every single voice from inside her screamed for her to enter. "Help us!" Echoed once more, resonant and knowing, sending a jolt of fear through her entire being. Just as the wind howled around them, unnaturally loud, would they succumb to the darkness? Hiding just beyond that threshold, or find something that could save not only Sophie but themselves? The line between salvation and doom was thinner than they knew, and the deeper they ventured, the more they understood that every choice mattered. And yet Sarah felt the urge to step forward, caught in the tremors of fear and uncertainty. What awaited them on the other side? The air felt electric as Sarah pushed herself through the door, her heart racing at the unknown that lay ahead. Behind them, the shadows writhed like angry serpents, trying to claw their way into her thoughts. She dragged Emily with her, both of them teetering on the edge of anxiety and hope. As they crossed the threshold, the world erupted into chaos. The flickering light enveloped them, revealing an ethereal landscape filled with shimmering shadows and tangled branches that swayed restlessly. Everything felt dreamlike yet terrifyingly real. "Sophie!" Sarah cried out, her voice ringing against the eerie stillness. They stumbled forward, the darkness curling around their legs like a shroud. Whispers coiled around them, a cacophony of voices that tore at their sanity. Every step felt heavy, as if the ground beneath them was determined to pull them back. "We have to find her!" Emily shouted, swallowing down her rising fear. As they ventured deeper, the shimmering trees twisted into shapes that reminded Sarah of her life-loving moments, sad memories, and everything in between. Each branch reached out like a ghostly hand, reminiscing on things they had left behind. But the warmth of nostalgia soured quickly, swallowed into feelings of loss. "We're almost there," Emily exclaimed, pointing toward a flicker in the distance. A soft light pulsed gently like a heart beating in the shadows. Relief sparked within Sarah, urging her to step closer. But just as hope ignited, a deep growl shook the ground beneath them. The shadows thickened, swirling, and a figure emerged. Mr. Collins, his face twisted into a sinister grin that made Sarah's heart sink into her stomach. "Did you really think you could escape?" he taunted, voice smooth like oil. "Let us go." Sarah yelled defiantly, her hands clenching into fists. "We just want our daughter." "Oh, but don't you see?" His voice echoed like a hollow bell. "Sophie is here, just as trapped as you are. You have entered a world of choices and consequences, and the darkness is always hungry." "No." Emily's voice quaked, her grip tightening around her mother's arm, a beacon of courage amidst despair. "Only the honorable may pass, remember?" Collins sneered, creeping closer. "But what does that even mean for you?" Sarah's thoughts raced. She glanced at Emily. Instinctively, they took a step back. "Come on. We can't let him win." She took a deep breath, memories flooding through her. Sophie's laughter, Emily's fierce determination, the love that tied them together stronger than any shadow. With newfound resolve, she stepped before Collins. "You don't control us. The darkness doesn't define who we are." "What a lovely sentiment." Collins mocked, but his expression flickered, uncertainty flashing across his face as if her proclamation briefly lit the way through the betrayals of shadows. As he lunged forward, Sarah shouted, "Together." Her voice rang out strong, commanding, igniting the pulsing light ahead. The tendrils of darkness thrashed, but the whispers grew faint against their harmony. The light surged forward, engulfing them in warmth. "Mom!" A familiar voice, sweet and clear, emerged from the depths of the tumult. "Help us. I'm here." "That's Sophie." Emily cheered, her spirit renewed. The shadows recoiled as if burned by the light. Each pulse thrummed with hope, pouring through Sarah's veins, reclaiming that which had been lost. "Let us go." Sarah yelled, hand extended toward her daughters. Emily's fingers found hers, and together they ran toward the glowing light. The world blurred around them, emotions layering into a tapestry of love and sacrifice. Shadows screamed, but their voices diminished against the ascendant light. The moment they reached for Sophie, reality shifted once more, and warmth enveloped them like a loving embrace. Then, they were suddenly outside, standing on the lawn of their home, the night quiet and beautiful under a blanket of stars. The dark figures dissolved into the background, shadows retreating back into their corners, leaving a palpable sense of calm behind. "Mom? Is it really you?" Sophie's soft voice broke. Through the stars, her face illuminated by the moonlight, alive with relief and disbelief. "Yes. It's us." Sarah pulled her into her arms, feeling the weight of all her fears melt away. Emily rushed forward to join the embrace, warmth flooding her heart. They were safe, they were together. As they stood wrapped in love and light, Sarah could still feel the echo of Collins' laughter lingering in the back of her mind. She looked back at the house, now silent and seemingly harmless again. Shadows had lurked, but they had faced their fears. The darker truths held power, but so did love. "Let us not go back in there," Emily suggested, eyes darting toward the door. "It'll always be a part of our past, but we can choose to leave it behind." "Agreed," Sarah affirmed. "We can face whatever comes, as long as we face it together." Looking toward the horizon, a promise filled the air. A whisper of a new beginning, a commitment to each other. As they walked away hand in hand, the starlit sky above offered comfort and assurance. They had battled darkness and emerged into the dawn, ready to embrace life and the unknown ahead, but the lessons would echo, the truth behind shadows might never fully disappear. Sarah glanced back one last time, a simmering fire igniting within her. In every neighborhood, in every quiet home, darkness could always linger, and they would be ready. Don't miss out on our next chapter. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the suspense alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible finale. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.